I was raised in a very dysfunctional family. We lived in a house that was utterly and completely demonic possessed. Demons actually manifest in this world. That's the kind of haunting, that's the kind of demonic activity that was prevailing. It permeated their lives and it literally destroyed us. All of us, with the exception of one sister, found ourselves gravitating towards drugs and alcohol.
Welcome to the Set Apart podcast. My name is Socrates. Today we have a special guest, Michael Gonzalez. Oh my gosh, I was reading his part, a little cachito de su testimony. What I read really impacted my life. So I can only imagine what you're about to tell me. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes, sir.
And Michael, just right off the bat, man, I don't want to take much time of the introduction. I want to get
right to it.
Right to it.
La mera cosa.
La mera cosa. Tijuana.
Yes.
Take us to Tijuana. Woo! I was reading, and I just saw the words hell. I saw the word demonic.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us, man, what's...
They often go hand in hand.
Yeah, they often go hand in hand. True that. True that.
You know, thank you guys for inviting me. It's always an honor to get invited to do a testimonial. You know, the Word of God says in Revelation that they defeated him by the word of their testimony, the blood of the Lamb, and they didn't love their life unto the death. I was raised in a very dysfunctional family in Tijuana, Baja California. And you might say, well, there's a lot of dysfunctional families. I mean, you can get a dime a dozen, you know, like everyone here probably comes from a dysfunctional family, right? To some degree or the other. What makes my dysfunctional family even so more dysfunctional is the fact that not only were we dysfunctional, but we lived in a house that was utterly and completely demonic possessed.
Wow.
The house had a history of being demonic oppressed. You know, over there in Tijuana, they say La Casa Espanta, right? It's haunted. But really, it was demonic. And being raised in a dysfunctional family was bad enough.
So when you say dysfunctional family, what do you mean by that? Because dysfunctional family can be, you know, my papa, my dad drinks, and my mom, you know, is taking care of us.
Right. Well, and that's a good question because it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
You know, it could be just economic dysfunction or an emotional dysfunction or relational dysfunction. In our case, we were all victims of psychological, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse.
Wow. Okay.
And it wasn't just one day. It was throughout years. For some of us, it was maybe a decade. For some of my older siblings, you know, I was too young to remember everything, but thank God, actually. But the paranormal experiences in our life, in our home, that my siblings shared were like taken from a script of a movie, a horror movie. Just think of the most scariest movie. That was what we really lived. They were horrifically terrorized and tortured by demons. And when I say that, brother, I'm not talking about just, you know, there was a little spook here and there, a little moaning here and there, a little knock on the door. No. What I mean by that is that demons actually manifested in this world, this dimension. They actually manifested to them. And, you know, they would scratch the bedroom windows, the doors, they would moan and groan and utter their names. And you know when a voice is normal and when a voice is kind of from another world. There's a remarkable difference. And if you've experienced the paranormal or the demon realm or the satanic realm, you know the difference. Because the Bible says your spirit will discern it. And so you discern that voice. And so they would hear moaning and groanings. They would, especially at night, by the way, they would manifest themselves by screams. They would hear every night a scream coming up from above the hill. And the scream would get closer and closer to the house in Tijuana, and it would always end at the doorstep of our house. This was a nightly routine, and you know the scream was from another world. Yeah, it sounded like a woman, but it was beyond a woman. It was a shriek.
Well, I mean, it just brought it to my mind. They call it La Llorona.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, that's a perfect example, and you know, even telling this story kind of sends chills up and down my spine. Why? Because it was a real thing. Because we actually had actual, you know, manifestations come before our eyes. my sisters and my brothers would see red faces glowing on the window panes nightly. They would scratch it, and they would open the curtains. They were brave enough to open the curtains because you always think, it's one of my friends pranking me, man.
Yeah.
It's one of my, quítate, meño, ya te vi, meño. I saw you. I saw you behind there, bro.
Yeah.
And they would open. It'd be a red face floating up in the air there, too tall to be a man. Demonic manifestations. They would manifest by Victorian age looking people. People from the Victorian age. I got a brother named Victor, and they would often haunt him with that. He would see from his bed, they would wake him up, and there'd be a man and a lady from the Victorian age. And they would just stare at him like, very demonic, right? They even saw all my siblings and all the kids in the neighborhood because they happened to be playing hide and go seek that night. By the way, when night fell, all the kids ran home because they knew the house was haunted and creepy things are going to begin to happen. So they were outside in one specific event. They were outside playing hide and go seek. And one of my sisters was counting, you count, and she was counting, and they all hid. And then she looked up because she figured they're probably hiding in the tree. It was un pirul, a weeping willow tree. So she looked up and she saw someone up there, and she goes, I saw you, Richard, I saw you up there. Bájate ya, ya te vi. And this thing came down, but it was not human, and it was not an animal. It was an actual demon about the size of 4 feet. Pointy ears, like the way we picture and we draw aliens from other planets. They're really not from other planets. That's a different subject. But this creature, they didn't come down like a man would. He came down forward like a lizard. And he stood before him. That's the kind of haunting, that's the kind of demonic activity that was prevailing. It permeated their lives, and it literally destroyed us. And I truly believe, brother, that from the bottom of my heart, that all the abuse that came from other family members, all the abuse, the horrific physical, psychological, emotional, and sexual abuse beyond that, was demonic influence. It came straight from the pit of hell. I really doubt it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it if those two people would have been so evil with us had we now lived in that house. It was like a movie. It was like a script taken from a movie. And moving forward a bit, in 1963, when we migrated here to LA, we initially moved over here by Spring Street, 7th Street in downtown LA, and then we moved to the Pico Union District. And that had been a welder in San Isidro for many years. We lived in that haunted house in Tijuana, but he had been a welder in San Isidro. So, getting our green card was very easy. We came in green card in hand, like the Beverly Hillbillies with all our furniture in our truck. And we drove in and we went to LA. And I was only 3 years old at that time. I was only 3 years old. Some of us were children when we came here, and the other ones were in their teens or adolescent or 18 or 19. But eventually, this is what happened. Eventually, the true impact of what that haunting, of what that demon activity did to our life began to reflect as began to mature. All of us, with the exception of one sister, all of us, and there's like 7 of us, all of us, with the exception of one sister, found ourselves gravitating towards drugs and alcohol. And, we did it because, you get drunk, you get high, you become an addict to alleviate the pain.
Yeah.
You want to escape that memory. You want to cover it up. You want a moment of joy, you see. So all our lives we self-medicated with alcohol and drugs. We sought to alleviate the sorrow, the demon oppression, the trauma, that was impacting our dysfunctional lives. So through the excessive consumption of alcohol and drugs, we just became addicts. We became addicts. In fact, I was 10 years old the first time I got drunk.
Wow.
10 years old, imagine that. And by the time I was 12, I was already, a little drug addict. Getting high practically every day of my life, and God is my witness. I'd go to school, I smoked me a doobie, and then in recess we ditch, or lunch we ditch, we missed, 4th, 5th, 6th period, and we'd go get drunk. 12 years old, bro. Year after year after year. So you see, the trauma that was inflicted on us, not only through the abuse, but specifically through the demonic paranormal activities that we lived, the firsthand experience, even though I was a little kid, and I'll share why it impacted me as well, just destroyed our lives. We probably would have been other people had we not been subjected to that demon activity and the abuse. We probably would all, I did go to college. I finished college. I got a degree, but my other siblings don't. And
affected them greatly.
yeah, it just messed them up, bro. It messed them up to the
I have a
point.
question, Michael. So your story starts in Tijuana, right?
Yes.
At a haunted house. Where
We'll call it haunted, but it was demon possessed.
Yeah, demon possessed, right? Demon possessed home. You move here to LA. Now you go to Pico. You go to
Pico Union District.
Pico
Yes.
Union District.
Yeah.
Did the hunting still happen there, or
That's a great question.
or it stopped?
That's a great question. The literal manifestations and stuff like they stop because demons are territorial. Okay, they're powers and principalities according to Ephesians, right? So they're territorial. They literally take territory, geographic territory. For some reason or the other, it could be that iniquity in that land, somebody got murdered, horrible things happened in that place, so they take over. So when we migrated in 1963 to LA, the physical manifestations stopped, but the haunting did not. And I'll explain to you what that is. While the demons didn't actually physically follow us, the memories, the impact, the trauma remained.
Yeah.
It's hard to erase. Seeing a red face glowing in your window pane. It's hard to erase someone scratching and pounding on your wall like with a sledgehammer. It's hard to erase a screaming woman that you hear every night. Those memories sear your mind. They are embedded in your mind and they become part of who you are, how you think, and how you feel. And working in the community I work with drug addicts and people struggling with alcohol and addictions, I can relate very well. Yeah. We all got into the drug and the alcohol because we all wanted to sedate. We needed painkillers. We needed something to calm us down. We got high, we got drunk because we wanted to erase the memories. We wanted to erase get rid of the emptiness, alleviate the pain and alleviate the trauma. So to answer your question, even though the manifestations did not continue, although to some degree they did, I'll explain that in a moment, in some cases, we were just traumatized for life, And unfortunately, when you're getting high and getting drunk, you do forget a little bit. You're getting drunk. There is joy in sin to a specific degree.
Yeah.
Right? You can get, one of my favorite things was smoking PCP and then mixing it with marijuana. You call it lovely. And then drinking some Jack Daniels. That was my absolute favorite. But you know what? There's always consequences. Yeah. You're paying the consequences of the trauma. You're paying the consequences of living in a home that's full of demons. And now you're paying the consequences for your addiction. And you're involved with that addiction because you're trying to alleviate the emotional pain, the scars, the memories, the trauma. That's why you're doing it. But see, consequences, they have a price. See, there are consequences involved. And if I want to jump the gun here a little bit, I want to tell you that in July 2nd, 1982, a day pretty much like this, it was hot. I had just returned from a missionary field with Calvary Chapel, Chuck Smith, and Raul Ruiz. That was my first time in the missionary field, 1982. Check this out. I've been in ministry a long time. Yeah. I'm an old guy, folks. And check this out. The following day when I returned, I came back in July 1, 1982. The following day, I had to get a phone call from California Youth Authority, where my brother was serving time, my younger brother. And he paid the ultimate price. His name was Marco. He was assassinated there at California Youth Authority. He was only 14 when he got picked up for some kind of an assault. Okay, he didn't even assault the people. He just pulled a knife at them and took their watch, and that was it. Okay, but because he had bad conduct, his time kept getting extended and extended and extended and extended. So at the age of 19, he was serving time at California Youth Authority. They call it YA now. And I used to work right next door to Chino Prison at one time. That call that morning will forever remain in my memory. You know, it's something to know about it. It's something to say, I'm over it. But when I share it, specifically in a day like this, because everything, the climate, the environment reminds me of that day.
Yeah.
Okay. Even then, you notice the emotion, right? It's not easy, bro, getting a phone call from someone telling you that your younger brother was assassinated. And not only was he assassinated, he was brutally assassinated. They tortured him. You see? So here we are, dysfunctional family, being raised in a haunted house, demon possessed, getting impacted by all the paranormal activity, going through all kinds of abuse. Then you're using drugs and alcohol to alleviate the pain, to forget the memories, to forget the trauma. But then you end up paying consequences. And some consequences are very steep, they're very high, and they're irretractable.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm a 5150 survivor myself. I tried to commit suicide 3 times. Why? Because of the memories, because of the trauma. Everything that happened to Marco and my brothers and me was the result of demon activity. In fact, when Marco was 2 or 3 months old, and you can see this in the book that my brother John Gonzalez, the author of Fear of the Unknown. When he was 2 or 3 months old, my brother Marco, my family says, my mom and all my siblings, they collaborate and corroborate the story, all of them. And they said when he was 2 or 3 months old, he was laying in his crib. The bedroom door was open. My family was in the living room. They were all watching Combat. It was an all series back in the 60s about the army, and it was one of my favorite shows. Combat. It went on for decades, like 40 years. So they were there. My family had everything in Tijuana. My dad was a welder in San Isidro, so he made money. I think he made $16 an hour at that time. That's a lot of money for the 60s. So we had a car, we had an old washer, a tub washer, we had an ironing board, we had bedrooms, we had beds. So we were not poor. Okay. When he was 2 or 3 months old, he was laying in his crib. And all my family, beginning with my mom to my eldest sibling, my youngest, my siblings a little older than me, they said they saw a shadow cross right in front of them, about a 5-foot shadow, floated in midair. Went into the bedroom. They all ran into the bedroom, and by this time, the shadow had descended upon my younger brother Marco while he laid in the crib. Literally descended upon him, like, okay? When Marco began to grow up, at the age of 5, he still couldn't speak. He was terrorized, and we didn't know why. He had trouble speaking. He had trouble interacting with other kids. He was always fearful, frightened. He would often cry for no reason. He was always depressed, either very high up there or very depressed. He would roll up his eyes, like he was seeing something or hearing something. He acted peculiar. He was always being bullied. He heard voices. We later find out that he heard voices. And then when Marco turned 12, he began to run away from home for days, weeks, and months. Now, imagine what that does to your mother. Your 12-year-old son is lost. We hear it in the news. We see, unfortunately, the horrific outcome of some of these kids that get kidnapped. They end up dead.
Yeah.
Marco always came back because I think God was merciful with my mom. But the impact that those paranormal activities and specifically that demon that laid upon him had an irreversible effect on him. You know, we later discovered he was schizophrenic. He was bipolar. But they put him in with the violent people at California Youth Authority. They misdiagnosed him. They thought he was only a very aggressive gang member because he was a big boy. At 14, he was already 6 feet.
Oh, wow.
Okay. By the time he was 19, he was like 6'2". So they put him all with all the bad guys in there, all the aggressive people. He didn't survive. They murdered him. And everything, I reiterate, everything had to do with the demonic paranormal activity from Tijuana. So while they didn't follow us, Literally, the trauma, the fear, the destruction was already done.
Mhm.
We were in ruins. Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, we were in ruins, bro.
Wow.
And I don't know who's listening to this, but in a moment, I think God has a word for you. You ever been to a psychologist or a counseling session? For someone, maybe you know someone that's traumatized. All the different characteristics that a psychologist would say, develop as a result of the trauma. Uh, you know, we all experienced them. We all went through very difficult moments in our life, and as we begin to develop and grow, they begin to increase. Okay. For example, we were horrible in school. Even though I skipped the third grade and I skipped the second grade because I was one of those kids that I began to read when I was 3 years old, two languages at the age of 3. So when I was in grammar school, I was like, I got this, man.
Yeah.
You see, so having a trauma doesn't mean that it impairs your intellect.
Mhm.
It impairs your emotions and your cognitive ability to think things through. Poor attendance, difficulty concentrating, memory loss, either short-term or long-term. You develop mood changes, you're bipolar, regressive behaviors, you have sleeping disorders, eating disorders, you lack
Everything, man.
self-esteem.
Everything.
The whole shebang, bro. Suicidal thoughts.
So, Michael,
You zone out.
let me ask you a question. So, all of this is going not just with you, but with your siblings. You lost your younger brother at the age of 19.
Yes.
Um, how are your parents doing? Well, this is all going. What are they doing? Are there?
That's a great question.
Is there conflict between them?
That's a great question. You know, when you mentioned a while ago, don't hold back. I asked the Lord, give me the sign. Give me a sign that you don't want me to hold back in that specific area. Give me a sign, God, because I put it. It's so delicate. It is the first time I've ever sharing it on camera. First time I've ever shared it on camera. I've been interviewed many times before, but it's the very first time that I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
Well, what a great first part of this testimony. Intense. We're going to come back next week to listen to the second half of this testimony, man. Second part, you cannot miss it.
Amen.